If you're anything like me, you're probably way too hard on yourself. You probably don't give yourself enough credit. I struggle with this all the time. I am not one that likes to talk about myself. I don't care about accolades or anything like that. But here recently, after sharing some of my doubts and questions that I had with continuing with business earlier this spring, I was talking to a friend of mine that's also in content creation. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep going with RotoHeat. We started in 2019. What started as mostly a hobby, we've half-assed attempted to monetize stuff. And I just wasn't sure if it was worth continuing with or not. I didn't feel like we had done as much as I would have liked to do. And I started writing for sports for Bleacher Report, actually. Before anybody knew who Bleacher Report was, like 2008, 2009, the company was still small enough. I was in group chats and DMs with the people that actually started it. And nobody at that time knew who Bleacher Report was. So when I started RotoHeat, I already had an idea because I saw that framework that was put together with Bleacher Report at the beginning. At that time, I was a featured writer for the Chicago Cubs, didn't get paid. It was still real early in their journey, and I would end up leaving to go to another website that, was promising to pay, and then they didn't pay. And then obviously Bleacher Report went on to be what Bleacher Report is. And sometimes you make the wrong decisions. We talked about that. It seemed like the right decision to make at the time because at, 22, 23, making some extra money writing articles about the Chicago Cubs sounded awesome. That website never paid $1 for any of the things that I wrote and was shut down fairly quickly. So when we first started talking, my friend said, first of all, both of your companies have been around for 5 years. Half of the companies don't even make it that far. And then he said, how many views do you have on YouTube? And we literally just got notified maybe 2 weeks ago that we had hit 1.9 million views throughout the life of the channel. So since really mostly 2020 through 22, because we didn't even create a ton of content last year. And again, just more as a hobby, but having fun, doing stuff that we like, talking about sports. He said, do you realize how many channels actually get to 1.9 million views? And I just figured it was a lot. The number is a high number, but when you look at the percentage of channels that actually get there, it likely puts us in like the top 1 to 2% of all channels on YouTube. Only 6% of channels even get monetized and join the partner program. And you don't really realize how much that's done. Obviously, 1.2 million views is a lot. That's a lot of eyeballs to put on anything. But until you really think about these things, and it doesn't matter if you're looking at whether you accomplished enough or let's say you set goals and you don't hit them, a lot of times you got to reframe the way you're thinking about that stuff afterwards. Because a friend of mine, the first podcast that I ever did was with Johnny Vibes, poker player, has a YouTube channel, has grown a good following and brand. And the first thing, or one of the things that we talked about on that podcast was reframing the way you view your successes and failures, right? Let's say you set a goal to do 100 sit-ups and you only make it to 90. Or if you want to make $100,000 and you only make 90,000. Did you really fail? Especially if before you were only doing 50 sit-ups or you were only making $50,000. Even though you didn't hit that goal, did you really fail? For me, like when I don't hit my goals, it's like the end of the world. It's like the whole world is coming down. I have high standards for myself. When I put my mind to something, I want to make sure that it gets done and that I get the results and hit those goals. So I had a real bad problem and still have a problem with being like, okay, like I actually did a good job. And It doesn't matter what you look at. When I was thinking about stuff for this video, I started thinking of other things. Okay, if RotoHeat's in the top 1-2%, that means this channel, I could get to the top 1-2%. It just takes time. I already know what it takes to get there, and it's just a matter of doing the thing and being consistent with it. Because RotoHeat, like, the issue with that is that, like, none of the content is evergreen, and we're doing fantasy content. So a lot of the times, 2 weeks later, you are whatever you recorded is just completely irrelevant, even in the off season. That made that really tough to grow, but we battled. And this isn't just a me thing. Like, it took an entire team creating content and putting stuff out, and it was a grind. And it's a competitive space where you're battling with ESPN's YouTube channel and CBS and NBC, and then all the fantasy sites that have been around before those big organizations even took on. So like the fantasy footballers and a ton of other great content providers. But again, 90% of people are going to quit when, for example, the first 2 videos that are out so far have got 51 views. I think I got 3 subscribers, but then, like, I had subscribers from random BS that I had put up before and we one of those. So we went from 9 subscribers to 11. We were at 12, but I already know the path. I already know that it's going to take a ton of videos to build up the catalog, the reputation, the consistency, to find the algorithm. But I need your guys' help. If there's anything specific that you want to talk about on these videos, or you want covered, or just thought process, or if you're somebody that knows me that just wants to ask any questions, whatever. Another aspect is losing weight. I haven't hit my goal yet, and I did have dates that I wanted to be at specific goals. But instead of saying, oh man, I've failed, and giving up on the weight loss, I've lost 60 of the 90 pounds that I wanted to. That seems like a pretty good deal when you actually put it into perspective of what's going on. So I think it's important to just sit back sometimes, look at what you've accomplished, look at what you've went through, and give yourself some credit. This right here is the hardest thing I've ever done. I've mentioned it in both videos. I hate doing solo content, and it's not nearly as good as I want it to be, but I know that I have to do the reps. True confidence doesn't come from out of thin air. Like, you have to have done stuff. For me, it's always really been that easy. I'm willing to do the work that a lot of people aren't willing to do. And I'm not any smarter, any more talented. I have to work extra hard at a lot of stuff because I'm not good at it. So when the stuff doesn't go perfect, when you don't hit those goals, sometimes you have to look back, and instead of beating yourself over up not getting to that specific milestone that you want to get to, step back, look at it. It's not only important to be honest with yourself when you're making mistakes, but you also need to be honest with yourself when you're doing stuff well, when you're accomplishing stuff. It's important to reaffirm that what you are doing is worth it. And I think a lot of times we get too caught up in the big picture that we forget to take a look at the things we have done that are really good, even if they didn't end exactly in the position that we wanted to be in at the end of whatever it is, whether it's something that you just do once and it takes 30 minutes, or if it's something that you've been working on for weeks or years. I think you have to be honest with yourself in both ways. You need to be able to look at yourself and say, okay, I'm not doing what I need to do here. You also need to be able to say, I've done a really good job with this. And if you can do that, and you can marry the good job with the figuring out the gap of what you've not done to get to the goal, then you can package that and figure out how to bridge that gap so that you can eventually get to where you want to go.